What is up, RPG nerds? In this video, I will be ranking all the final bosses in the all the final bosses in the traditional Final Fantasy games, aka the turn-based ones, that aren't from different series, so no, Saga, I will get to those in the full ranking eventually, but those are a little too different from the traditional ones in my opinion. Anyway, so we'll be ranking all the final bosses, but before we get to that, I'm going to make a little self-plug. If you've already watched my channel before, feel free to skip this. It's only going to be like 30 seconds though, but I'm making my own RPG called The World's My Playground, Realm of the Relinquished. Please like and subscribe and go to the community channel, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make not the best, because I'm not trying to be, I want to make the best, but I'm sure it won't turn out that way because everyone has, for some people, maybe it will be. But basically, I'm trying to make the best spiritual successor to the entire, I'm trying to bring in every influence I can of every single of my favorite RPGs to try to make the perfect RPG, in my opinion, the perfect RPG that I want everyone to be a part of that. Over on the community tab, I'm asking all these questions, trying to figure, I've only asked a couple questions because it's still early in development, but I'm asking all these different questions, like, which would you prefer? Would you prefer a CTB system or a traditional turn-based system, or what type of title theme do you want? So if you want to join, kind of become like what is the word? What was the word? Like the committee behind, part of the committee towards creating this game and helping me figure out what really makes traditional turn-based RPG so special. I would love for you to go join the community tab and just look at that and just vote. You don't even have to say anything, but just voting would be a huge help. And if you can subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, it would be so helpful, because really, I just want to create good RPG content and create my own awesome RPG, and I need y'all's help to know what really makes RPG special. And if you join that community, you will get just complete hands-on, your vote really counts, because typically each poll only gets 30 people, so one vote is 3% of the opinion. It's pretty huge. If you can get more people to come and vote, though, tell your friends. Even if they're just a casual RPG player, that would be awesome if you could come over. Anyway, that was definitely more than 30 seconds. I apologize about that, but I was just excited because personally, I would love to be a part of a community like that. So hopefully I want to have a Discord sometime, and I want my channel to really, once I'm rich, and I'm trying to become a psychiatrist, so not for the money. But anyway, the point is, once I have money and I'm not a broke kid, I want to try to advertise the game and, Chained echoes it. So try to get it out there, but I want it to be the democratic RPG. I don't want there to be it's going to disappoint somebody, but I want it to be a very hands-on, what really makes those turn-based RPGs special. And that's part of the name. The world is my playground. The idea is that we're coming together and making this RPG as kind of a playground, as a community tab where we're all messing around trying to figure out what makes the game so special. So anyway, that was way too long. I should probably just make a singular video on the channel explaining it, so I don't have to explain it before every video, but I just wanted to kind of stick in people's heads so they check out the community tab and whatnot. But anyway, final boss ranking. So let's do this. It's in a random order as always, because, well, let's randomize that a little more. I don't like talking about the first couple videos of this series. I just talked about all the spin-offs at the end, and it really bothered me because it felt like there was no, I don't know. I like to end on one of my favorite games, and the spin-offs aren't, as a whole, my favorite of these games. I still really like them, but yeah, anyway. So, final boss ranking. Final Fantasy X-2. Oh boy. One of the most forgettable final bosses. I don't even remember the name of this thing. I'm going to be honest. I beat this. Is this the most recent game I beat on this list? Yeah. No. World of Final Fantasy was the most recent game I beat on this list. But this is the second most recent game I beat, Final Fantasy X-2. I did not like this game as a whole, but I can't even remember the final boss. Was it Shuyin? It might have been Shuyin. Shuyin FF10-2. Shuyin boss. Oh, actually, I was right. Okay, maybe I did remember. What is this health? Who made that? 23,000. See, this is the problem with Final Fantasy X too. It's pretty much the easiest game ever made. I hate this boss with the burning passion. We'll put it in F tier. I mean, it was so unbelievably easy. I remember beating this game and being like, that was not worth my hours. Like, after I beat a final boss, I want to be either like tearing up, like jumping for joy that I beat the game, or something. Final Fantasy X-2, all I thought of as soon as I beat the game is I wasted part of my life playing the game. So F tier. Final Fantasy IV The After Years is unfortunately kind of in the same boat. Although I did have a lot more fun with the After Years than Final Fantasy X-2. Okay, not a lot more fun, but a slightly more amount of fun than Final Fantasy X-2. E tier, though. I mean, the creator was just... I know everyone says this, but she's basically just blue-haired evil Rydia, and she was not interesting. Although, actually, I will give it this. I did fight the final boss multiple times because I wanted... There was unique character dialogue, and I wanted to test my characters. I wanted to see, like, who really can beat the final boss. I tried to run a Calca, Brina, Harley, Zangetsu something run. I think I did beat it, actually, with the worst characters. To be fair, they were at level 99. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I kind of had fun. I don't think most of these games I actually fought the final boss twice. Actually, you know what? The actual boss fight was fun. Now, the boss itself, like, the character was garbage. But you know what? I'm going to put it in C tier. I forgot. I actually did quite enjoy this, because if I hated it so much, I wouldn't have fought it multiple times, now that I think about it. So, actually, yeah, it was pretty fun. Alright, Final Fantasy 1, still to this day, one of my favorite final bosses in the series. Chaos's Gas. Great music. Great climactic. Great plot twist. I mean, okay, for an NES game, I mean, that's a cool plot twist. I mean, it's still a pretty decent plot twist regardless, that Garland was like the big bad or whatever, the one behind it, and that he was like looping time. I thought that was cool, honestly. Still a pretty, I mean, not like a top tier plot twist by any means, especially with so many games with better plot twists, but still memorable. And just the boss is so fun. I mean, I've fought Chaos so many times. I mean, it's definitely the boss fight I fought the most on this list. I mean, there have been a couple times where I beat Final Fantasy 1, and I came back a couple weeks later and just refought Chaos because I saved right before Chaos. It's a fun boss. The most fun thing, though, is to temper and haste your monk up. Well, mostly temper. No, get the whatever gauntlets, the ones that cast Saber on yourself, and try to buff up your monk until you one-shot the final boss. I think, let's see, it has 20,000 health, which in this game is fair. In Final Fantasy X-2, that is an awful number, but in this game it's fair. 20,000 health, and I haven't done it myself, but my brother, he got up to 25,000 health and hit 25,000 damage with one hit from the monk, insta-killing Chaos. And that's what I love about this. Like, you can insta-kill the final boss, but it's not, like, cheap. Like, I mean, if you want to insta-kill him, yeah, but you still have to survive all of his attacks for, like, a billion turns. So, I don't know. I love Chaos. One of my favorite final bosses. Super climactic. I mean, and his design is just awesome. I mean, look at this thing. FF1 Chaos final boss. I mean, it's kind of lewd, but, like, look at that thing. I mean, there's literally a snake coming out of his stomach. I mean, he looks super cool. I think this is my favorite. I love the PSP version, so... Oh my gosh, that is so ugly. I'm sorry, but what? He's so tiny. Okay, anyway, I don't like pixel remasters that much. Except for FF3. But anyway, super epic. Love Chaos. Great boss fight. S tier. Alright, Final Fantasy Dimensions 2. Okay, this one is weird. Because there's a final boss. I mean, this is actually the same with World of Final Fantasy. So I'll kind of talk to him about them together just for a quick second. There's technically like 2 endings in each of these games, because there was a later DLC that added in this whole like new world in Final Fantasy Dimensions 2. So And same with World of Final Fantasy. Although World of Final Fantasy, if I remember correctly, still had the same boss each time. But, like the cutscenes afterward and stuff were different. Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, I would say, definitely varies in quality depending on which one I'm talking about. But since to me, the game is so not... It just doesn't feel right. And the ending is so much worse if you don't complete this. It's like a whole nother arc of the game. I mean, it's a significant portion of the game. So I would definitely say it's part of the main story, even though it did come a little later. I mean, to be fair, though, the game is so different than it was originally in Gacha, all that stuff, as Final Fantasy Legend 2. So, if we were counting, the original final boss, like Mega Bahamut or whatever. Sorry. Probably shouldn't spoil this too much for people. Actually, I mean, to be fair, that's pretty much just a boring boss fight anyway. So, but the actual final boss fight, if you play the game, I mean, the cutscenes are awesome. I mean, look at this. This is actually Final Fantasy. Yeah, here we go. Images. Just look at this. This is part of the final boss. This is how many characters are up against the final boss. Like, look at this. I mean, tell me that isn't bad, eh? I mean, it was epic. And, like, I don't know. This game is super underrated. I think it's a fun game. So, you know what? We're going to throw this, just for, like, the epicness of all of it, B tier. These might move around. Honestly, these could go higher. They could go lower, too, though. We'll see about that. But for now, those go in B and C. Though I think these are about... No, because this one felt really climactic. I liked the surrounding cutscenes. I liked the end of the game and all that. Whereas Final Fantasy 4, I just couldn't care less. But Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, I mean, the villain that you were up against wasn't too interesting. But it was the party members, the camaraderie, the fact there's like 30 characters on the screen at once. I thought that was super epic. Might move to A, honestly. I thought that was really cool. Super memorable. I mean, I remember a lot. I don't really remember a lot about the boss, but I remember the whole, like, gauntlet of, like, fights at the end of the game. You also get, like, right before the end of the game throws, like, 6 temporarily playable characters into your party. That, like, they just designed completely just for... okay, dude, I might have to throw this in A. I mean, it was just so epic. It was epic as sin. Yeah, I'm going to throw that in A, honestly. That's kind of wild, but it was super cool. I mean, you got to play as, like, humanoid versions of all the summons, fighting the gods of the summons. Like, the gods of the summons. I mean, the summons are the gods of the humans, and then you're fighting the humans, and the summons are fighting the god of the summons. It was sick, actually. Now that I think about it, it was so good. Yeah. It was cool. I might move it up. Okay, this is probably obscene. It'll almost definitely move down later, but I just want it to get its recognition it deserves. So S tier. Okay. World of Final Fantasy. I think the whole events leading up to the final boss is awesome, but the actual final boss is kind of boring. But the whole, like, you fight it twice, 2 endings, all that stuff was really cool. But the actual fight, I remembered nothing about. And the villain was kind of corny. A little too corny for me. It wasn't my favorite. The surrounding cutscenes were good, though. I'm kind of trying to incorporate that as well. But still, I still had more fun with FF4 The After Years, because I did fight it multiple times. Although the surrounding cutscenes will make me put it in the C tier as well. Final Fantasy X's final boss? My favorite part about this was the music and the cutscenes at the end of the game. But I'm not counting the cutscenes like... I'm not counting the final cutscenes as part of it, but the cutscenes surrounding the boss itself. Because a final cutscene... I made a specific ranking just about final cutscenes already on the channel. And I think that would be weird to be counting the final cutscenes as part of the bosses. So... I love the final cutscenes of Final Fantasy X, but the actual final bosses are, in my opinion, way too easy for how OP you can get in this game. I mean, even if you do the slightest bit of grinding, Jack's final Aeon is way too easy. And the surrounding scenes are pretty good. But then, Yevon, I don't like final boss fights that have any incorporation of, like, 100% win. And Yevon was just, I mean, final boss-wise, this was pretty mid. The music was definitely the best part by far of these boss fights. So I'm going to put this in C right here. And actually, for now, I'm going to move Final Fantasy IV The After Years up to B. Because it was just fun. Like fighting it multiple times, trying to challenge myself. Calcabrina, Harley, and Zangetsu. And wait, I can have one more party member. Oh, and Sid. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. It was so bad. Oh, that was fun. Yeah, gameplay-wise, After Years definitely impressed me more than 4. For The After Years definitely impressed me more than 10. I mean, Final Fantasy X, one of my favorite games, and I still thought that the whole package of the final dungeon, the final boss, the final cutscene still completely worked for me, but it was just too easy, and that was really sad for me. And I don't like final bosses that have any... I'd say there's one game that incorporates it well, where the final boss is mostly just like a story boss, and it's actually my favorite game of all time. And it incorporates it so well because the cutscenes and the whole, because it's so incorporated into the story as like a final boss that you like kind of have to win. Like, I was crying during the final boss because just how epic the moments were in that game. I'll talk about that in a different video eventually, but basically that game, I'm going to leave you on the edge. I'm not going to tell you what game it is. But anyway, that game does it well, where the whole time there's epic final boss music that I'm simultaneously banging my head to while crying at the cutscenes, while fighting a scripted boss. And I was simultaneously having the time of my life with the music, crying because the cutscenes were amazing, and the epicness of this boss, even though I know that it's scripted. That game is the one time I've liked a scripted final battle. Unfortunately, Final Fantasy X's Yu Yevon is garbage outside of the music. So yeah, a C tier is what I'm going to have to put for this one. Final Fantasy Dimensions, Final Fantasy Dimensions has good gameplay. So by that, it's fun. It was a fun final boss. And the twist was good. I will admit the twist was unexpected. Actually, I wouldn't say it's good, but it was unexpected. But it was a below average final boss. It was fine. But, oh yeah, I fought it and I was like, oh yeah, next form. It was just too easy. I was like, oh, there's got to be at least like 2 more forms. Like, that was a pushover. And then no, there wasn't. There might have been 2 forms, but regardless, it just still felt too easy. So D tier, not really memorable. Final Fantasy II's final boss, I really like. But what makes this one so special, I'm going to have to throw it in the S tier for now. Again, for now. Big emphasis on for now. Is that if you play the Solar Rebirth in the PSP or GBA version, you get this awesome, like, thing where you fight the final boss, the Dark Emperor version, and then when you go to fight the Light Emperor version, it shows gameplay. To be fair, it's not actually your own gameplay, unfortunately. That would be really cool. But it shows, like, mock gameplay where in between it's showing your team of the 3 and Leon fighting the Dark Emperor while your team in the World of the Dead is fighting the Light Emperor, and it's so cool. Also, the Emperor, as long as you don't use the Blood Sword, is actually a pretty decently hard boss because he keeps healing himself and his attacks do a lot of damage. I mean, he's not hard. I'd still say even Chaos is harder. But it's a pretty fun boss fight. I do say it's more fun than Chaos, and it's one of my favorite boss fights in the series. It always has been, and especially the Solar Rebirth. It's such a cool ending that you kill this bad guy and then you kill him again, like, simultaneously, and then you save the world. It's just, it hits different for me. So I love the Final Fantasy II final boss fight. So yeah, again, probably FF Dimensions 2 is probably going to move down to A. I mean, realistically, that's all that makes sense. But I just want it to be an S because I think that's awesome that I actually consider that good. So yeah. Anyway, FF Tactics A2. Heck. Yeah, I'm going to have to put it in F right at the bottom. So bad. I don't even remember who the final boss of this game was. I remember fighting this mission and then the credits rolled. I was like, wait, that was the final boss? You're kidding. Actually, I'm going to have to move FF10-2 up. This one was so bad. Um, that was a really embarrassing ending of a game, in my opinion. I don't know what they were thinking. It just felt so anticlimactic. And I legit thought that I wasn't done with Act 1 of the game, and then the game ended, and I was like, what? You're telling me that was actually the big bad? I thought that was just going to be like a fake out big bad. Like, that's what I was getting vibes of, and it just wasn't good, so yeah. Tactics Advance, this is probably the one time I'll ever rank the final boss of, this is probably the one time I'll ever rank Advance over A2. I'm going to put it right here. It was fine. I think it was a little... I actually felt like it was going to be a final boss, even though it still wasn't my favorite. And I actually felt like it was going to be a final boss, so that's one thing I can give it. Yeah, I mean, it's still an E. No, actually, I'll move it to D. I think I'll move it to D. At least it gives me a little bit more joy than 10-2. Yeah, that's fair. Cool. Okay. Final Fantasy 3. Actually, I have one thing I need to look up. Can you beat the Cloud of Darkness FF3 without beating the 4 Warriors of Darkness? I can't remember. Practically unwinnable. But practically unwinnable. Does that mean unwinnable? Okay. Well, I want to remember. I can't remember. Okay, I know that it's practically impossible to damage, but I want to know if you can actually beat it. I guess I could just try it myself, but... Okay. Someone please tell me down below. Nobody's saying anything. Sorry, guys. Yeah, can someone tell me down below? It would mean a lot if you told me if you're actually able to beat it or not without. Because to me, I think it would be really cool if it pulls like, I don't know, like kind of like a Breath of the Wild where you can beat it and it's like practically unwinnable form. And if that is the case, I've never tried it because I didn't want to have to, go back and load my game because I've always really played the 3D version. I mean, I did play the Pixel Remaster, but I don't know. I just went and beat the game because I just wanted to say I've beaten the Pixel Remaster. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is if you have that option to fight this boss and not fight the 4 things around it and try to like win an unwinnable battle and you're allowed to do that, that will instantly make this shoot up near the top of the list because it would actually make for a difficult Final Fantasy final boss that sounds super fun, like a super boss. So tell me down below, please, somebody, just anybody, tell me if you've been able to beat the final boss without fighting the 4 Warriors of Darkness. Because if that is the case, this will probably shoot up to S+, just for the fact that I would actually have a difficult time beating a Final Fantasy final boss. That would be amazing. So let me know down below. So it would be up there. But otherwise, it's pretty forgettable. I mean, you don't even know the name of the boss, and it's just too easy. I mean, again, I want to say it's up here if you can actually beat it. Otherwise, it'd be kind of like the famed Mimic Go-Go. But otherwise, at least Final Fantasy Dimensions has a cool plot twist with it, I'm going to move that up to C, actually. FF3's final boss just isn't that special. I mean, the design is kind of cool, I guess. Kind of ugly, though, too. I don't know. Not that memorable. I think I think this was really cool as a kid when I sucked at the game and it felt like a really hard challenge to go fight those 4 things and then go fight the final boss, and it felt hard. And I was like, oh, frick, I got to be good or else I'm going to die because I haven't saved for 2 hours or whatever. To me, 2 hours back then was like so much time, so I was going to be so mad if I lost. So it felt really tense when I was a kid, but playing it again these days is just too easy, and you don't even know the name of the final boss until you get to the end of the game, and that's stupid. So, yeah. Alright, as I usually do, I need to put in another FF4 because, again, 3D versus 2D versions usually changes my opinion on FF4 when it comes to combat and stuff. OG FF4 is going to go right here. I think that, again, you really don't even know who the final boss is until like the very end of the game. The whole game, Golbez has been the final boss, and then he like joins up with you, which is cool and all, but the final boss itself was just as bad, actually even worse than FF3. At least FF3 had that cool thing of like going around and, you know, I'm going to move this back down to E. I still think that these are on a better tier than this. But anyway, I think FF3, the original version, honestly did it better than FF4. Like, I liked the whole fighting the 4 things, spelling the barrier more than just going up and using the crystal or whatever. Now, cutscene wise, the surrounding cutscenes in FF4 are pretty good, where everyone's like praying for you or whatever. But actually, in FF3, I did kind of like the 4 old men and Dash and all these people like showing up to kind of come help you. So I don't know. I think 3 actually did it better. You know what? But 3's is just too easy. I like the things surrounding the final boss, but to be fair, those 4, like dispelling the barrier, fighting those 4 things are separate boss fights, and I don't think those can really count as part of the final boss. I don't think they count as part of the final boss unless there's no going to the menu in between, if that makes sense. Like, it has to be part of one whole gauntlet, and FF3 is not like that, so I'm not going to really count those 4 bosses as part of the final boss. But regardless, I still think that the original FF3 does it better than the FF4. Now, I'm going to put the 3D version slightly higher because Zero Miss in the 3D versions actually is a little bit challenging. And having a final boss actually be a little challenging does make me actually enjoy it better. So, probably for the one out of 2 times that I will rank Final Fantasy IV The After Years above FF4, I'm going to put FF4 there, and I'm actually going to move FF10 up to B, because at least there's some really cool moments surrounding it with Jecht and all that stuff. So yeah. I think the 3D version, the challenge alone makes me like it a little bit better than 3 in Dimensions. It's still not that hard, but at least he isn't like pushover easy. Like, I swear Meteor does like 200 damage to everybody in PSP version or whatever, whereas he does like 2, 3, 4,000. I mean, Big Bang actually can cream you in the 3D version. So that makes me like it slightly better. So, yeah. All right. Final Fantasy V's final boss. Intriguing. Zero Miss Frick. Exdeath and Neo Exdeath is awesome. I love that there's like, first of all, it is a boss gauntlet. There's 2 bosses in a row. I love bosses with multiple phases. So let's just get that out there. And multiple actual phases. No Z-Miss, Zero Miss garbage. Like actual 2 different phases. I love that. I love the multi-target hitting. Like, any boss with multi-targets is really cool. That was cool. Neo Exdeath is one of my favorite bosses in the series, honestly. But not too high, I don't think. I think that's where I would put it. Neo Exdeath. Yeah, that looks about right. The only problem is the game is still just a little too easy. I mean, if you even try to level up summoners and use rapid fire or chemist abilities, it just becomes so unbelievably easy to beat. But I mean, the thing about FF1 and 2 is there's nothing that you can do to become so OP. Like, at least you have to spend a few turns berserking yourself and tempering and hasting to actually do some damage. I think that's a big part of why I like FF1 and 2, because there's no way to just be so OP that it's hilarious. So, yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is where I would put it. I don't know. I still just love that FF Dimensions 2 throws like 6 new characters at you at the very end of the game. I mean, that's epic. And again, having like 30 people be kind of part of the final boss fight is just too good to be true for me. So, I don't know. Heck, that might even end up moving even higher now that I think about it. But anyway, basically, yeah, Neo Exdeath is pretty awesome, but it could have been better. FF6's final boss, I think it's even easier than... I think that if this boss were like 10 times harder, I would probably put it on the top for Kefka. But I'm going to put it right here. I love the idea that if you die, your characters get replaced and you keep going. FF8 does kind of do this as well, which was really cool. But the problem is the boss is just too easy. Like, who is going to die? And if somebody dies, it's like one person. Or like you purposely let them die so you can put someone else in the party. Like, it's just too easy. I love the idea of this final boss, but it was just too easy to actually have the full scope of it. But it was still a really cool idea. Cool ideas here. The different forms and playing the music and as you climb up was super cool. But again, it was just too easy. I mean, to be fair, FF2, you can use the blood sword, but that wasn't... I mean, that's pretty obviously an oversight from the developers. Instead of, they just didn't really make it. Like, the blood sword wasn't supposed to be OP. Whereas, like, things like Ultima, the Offering... I'm sorry, not the Offering. The Master Scrolls, like, so obviously just... The game is just too easy. And it just really tarnishes 5 and 6. Where, to me, they would obviously be top spots if they weren't just too easy. And 7 is going to be the same. I mean, it's also going to go in A. Again, it's just, there's too much OP stuff. But, I don't think that's my biggest problem with 7, actually. My biggest problem with 7 is that it's like, it's too easy, but also there's abilities that, like Grand Cross, that are like 2-minute long animations. And it just breaks the pace of the battle. Now, if that ability actually was OP and instantly killed my whole party or something, I would actually be a bit amused by it. But he's like destroying all these planets and then he hits you for like 1,000 damage and it's just way too easy. Again, FF1 and 2, as long as you aren't breaking the game with the blood sword, they're actually a bit of a challenge there. And that's part of why I love those boss fights so much. Where, I mean, I don't know. These boss fights feel epic, but I still feel like the ones in S tier still felt more epic. It's just kind of crazy, but I don't know. This is actually how I feel because, yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I just never have ever gotten as much out of these final bosses as I have as these two. And this one's just epic. I mean, I've only fought this final boss once, whereas I fought all of these at least like 2 or 3 times. So maybe that's part of it, but no, I don't think so. Because FF Dimensions 2 just really built to that climax. Again, these games are just too easy. And what's cool about this one is it splits up your party where you have to fight like 8 different bosses in a row. And each group only gets to fight the final boss. You only fight with your main character, the 2 main protagonists of the game. Which makes it actually a little difficult. I mean, not really, but again, that's my problem with these ones. It's just too easy. And yeah. Final Fantasy Tactics. Although to be fair, the one that's probably going to top this list is also too easy. But I don't know. It's just hard. FF games are too easy. The final bosses are just too easy most of the time. And it kind of ruins... Some of them have such cool gimmicks and they get ruined by the fact they're just too easy. Okay, I've said that word too many times. Final Fantasy Tactics. This one, is a little bit harder. But I still don't like it as much as the ones in A tier. But it'll definitely go at the top of B. I think that's a good place for it. Yeah, I think this is a great final fight. Great final thing. And definitely one of the hardest on this list. But I still didn't think it has as many cool mechanics as the ones in A. It's so funny that the most simple ones are winning it out in S. And honestly, remembering Dimensions 2, this is the craziest thing I've probably ever done in a ranking, but I'm going to put Dimensions 2 up in S+. No other game has had that big of a boss gauntlet, splitting up parties, two things that for some reason I'm obsessed with, and gives you 6 new characters to fight the final boss with. I think that was just incredibly epic. Whoever designed that final boss gauntlet definitely deserves a raise. I mean, most people have not even played that final boss, but if you have, let me know down below what you think. So, yeah. And it wasn't so unbelievably freaking easy. So, it was still pretty easy. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah. FF Tactics was good. Just good. I don't have any problems with it, but I don't like them as much as the ones in A. Even though the ones that Tactics is harder than the ones in A. Those ones just had more cool gimmicks and ideas around them. So, yeah. Alright, Final Fantasy VIII. Oh, this one is too easy still. But I think part of it, again, to me, it feels like an oversight in the developers. I don't think they realized how OP Aura was going to be in this game. And how OP Limit Breaks were going to be. And we haven't really got like a full remake. I mean, the remaster was pretty poorly done. I mean, and a lot of people love spamming limit breaks. I don't know. I feel like if you play this boss the way it was originally intended, I know that this argument could probably be made for A and stuff. But again, the reason that I think this about 2 and 8 is that to me, as a player, it just so obviously feels like this was not supposed to be so easy. Whereas the ones in A, there's just, like, there's no way that someone was like, oh, rapid fire, that's not going to be OP. In my opinion. It just doesn't seem right. Or, like, for Final Fantasy VII, it's like, they have so many OP materia they made for that game. To me, it just doesn't feel like an oversight the way that 2 and 8 did. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being an idiot, but that's what I think. FF8 is epic. I mean, so many, it takes that mechanic from FF6 with like your people switching out and stuff, but actually I did have a couple more people die in this one. I don't know if it was just me being an idiot, but it actually felt a little more climactic about that. And it's also crazy because I didn't know that was going to be a mechanic. So when random people end up joining my party that have very few things junctioned them, I was like, oh snap, oh frick. And it actually built up that tension because you're like, you got to be prepared. And also like being able to take steal Apocalypse and all that stuff. I don't know. I just really enjoyed 8's final boss. To me, it was a slightly more fun version of Kefka. I think it was slightly executed better, just barely, but a little bit better because it had that same like type of mechanic. But I thought the forms were better. They fit more with the actual game. I don't know. Kefka's and his weird like arms and goddess and all that stuff was a little weird. Weird in a good way, but a little bizarre. Whereas 8's forms, I enjoyed more, personally. So, Final Fantasy VIII is going to go up into S tier. I think that's fair. The underdog being on top. I just love that so much. But that's really how I feel about Dimensions 2. You gotta play it to know. I mean, it's epic. You get 6 new characters, your party splits up, and it's a huge boss gauntlet. It's all my favorite things in one. I forgot until I looked at that picture, and I just remembered. An even better story, you want to know when I was beating this final boss? My band teacher was like one of the rudest people I've ever met, right? So a lot of times I pretended I have chronic stomach issues, And I was able to get my parents to agree with him because they hated him that much. The fact my parents were in on it. My dad was like, yeah, you're allowed. You can go to the bathroom and play Final Fantasy Dimensions 2. Like, and my dad, like, really seriously feels that, like, you don't skip school, right? And it was so funny that he gave me permission to go into the bathroom, hide out on the toilet, and play Final Fantasy Dimensions 2, right? That is when I beat the final boss of this game. On the toilet during jazz band class because my band teacher was so unbelievably rude that my parents gave me permission to leave the class. And my poor brother was in there, and his moral code just would never let him do that. But I beat the Final Fantasy Dimensions 2 final boss, all of it, during one period of skipping jazz band. That's most of when I played Final Fantasy Dimensions 2 even. It's just, all of that together just really gets that in number one for me. The more I think about it, the more I've been pondering it in this video, I think that really was the best FF final boss fight. So kudos to them. But we have one more, Final Fantasy IX. Oh my gosh. Nothing makes me more sad than the Final Fantasy IX final boss fight. At least I knew Final Fantasy X-2 was a garbage game. So the final boss being bad didn't disappoint me. It checked out. Final Fantasy IX, it's still better than Tactics A2, but I'm going to put it in the F tier. Actually, no, because he pretty much quotes Yoda. I'll put it in the D tier, actually, now that I think about it, just because it's funny. What is Necron? Why is Necron? No, why are we? No. What are we doing with Necron? At least I knew that there was no good final... Like, at least there wasn't... I mean, at least in Final Fantasy III, I wasn't expecting anything because the whole game didn't really have a good antagonist. At least in Final Fantasy IV, Golbez ends up joining you, so it feels like there's a point of the antagonist existing. So, like, Zero Miss is stupid as heck, but at least Golbez kind of joins you to fight it, and it's like, okay... The antagonist was controlled all along. So, like, Golbez controlled Kain and Golbez was being controlled. It was a decent twist. Final Fantasy IX is just, like, the epitome of death. I know a lot of people have started to defend Necron. And I've read some of those Reddit posts and stuff. And I was like, okay, I see what people think. But for me, it's just so unbelievably bad that we are getting... That 9 is just doing that thing where you start fighting the epitome of death. No. The whole game we've had an antagonist that was actually not that bad. But Kuja was almost completely ruined. Like, me caring about him was completely thrown out the window, and the game pulled Necron. Now, the music for Necron is almost good enough that I am okay with Necron existing. That's the music and the fact that Necron's quotes are so unbelievably bad and cheesy and funny are why they're in the D tier, not in the F tier. That's why I moved it up. I forgot. He almost shot for shot quotes Yoda. Okay? Look at this. Final Fantasy IX release date. You gotta see this. 2000. July 7th, 2000. Okay? Phantom Menace release date. 1999. Okay? 1 year before, right? This is my conspiracy theory. I'm sure a lot of people have already said this, but hate leads to suffering. Final Fantasy IX. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Why in the frick is Yoda being quoted? That's the only reason I like Necron, because it's so funny to me. Heck, I like it enough that I'll even move it above Zero Miss and FF3, just because it's funny. Necron is so out of the blue that it made me laugh. laugh at the game, not with the game, but at the game, but it still is funny. He's quoting Yoda. He's the epitome of death. It's the most dumb RPG thing. Like, at least in some games it makes sense. Like, at least killing God in Final Fantasy, in the Final Fantasy Legend 1 kind of checked out, because that was kind of the point of the whole game. Trying to get up to the top of this tower and see what's up there, but Necron is so dumb. And the thing that makes it the worst is that the boss is brain dead easy. Because for some stupid reason, none of the bosses in Final Fantasy IX have more than like 60,000 health, except for Q, which has 65,555 health. Whatever his name is. Final Fantasy IX boss fight. Oh, Quail, that's his name. I think he's the only boss in the game that has above 60,000 health, if I remember correctly. That means that by default, it is very easy to, since you only do 9999, 7-shot the final boss. Okay. Technically, you can do that in Final Fantasy VII. But you can't. At least it has 3 different phases that you have to couple shot or whatever. But at least it feels cool if you're using limit breaks the Knights of the Round. It feels so unbelievably dumb to beat the final boss by using Frog Drop and Dragon Crest, and I wasn't using Zidane in my party, so let's say, oh yeah, I think I threw Steiner and VV, and oh yeah, I had Dark Absorb on everybody using Doomsday. So I'm being healed for 9-9, pretty much max health every turn. It's just, there's too much easy. It's just too easy. Like, at least Final Fantasy 7, 5, and 6, you have to come up with some smart combo to easily beat this thing. And Final Fantasy 9, you don't even have to equip abilities, bro. You could learn like 2 abilities and still beat this boss. No questions asked. Super easy. Like, I mean, y'all, I beat Ozma at level 28. That is how unbelievably stupidly easy Final Fantasy 9 is. Can be if you have like 5 brain cells. This is why I can't stand Final Fantasy IX's combat. It's so easy and so slow, and I hope the remake fixes it. If they give the final bosses 600,000 health instead, maybe you'll convince me that this is a top tier final boss. I don't want to 6-shot the final boss with boring abilities. I'm sorry. But it goes at the top of D tier because Yoda. So, thank you Yoda for making FF9's final boss go from the F tier to the D tier. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, be sure to like, subscribe, check out the community tab, and become part of my committee for creating my own game. I really want to make that game super special. I want everything from my favorite RPGs to be jam-packed in one game. It's hard as frick because just the amount of time I have to spend thinking about just each piece of dialogue. And I'm also translating into French as I go, and will be translating into Japanese because I'm also learning Japanese, but I'm not quite at the same level as I am at French. So I'm having to think about it in English and French, and just, let's just say it is hard. But anyway, I would love for you to all be part of that. And thank you all for watching this video. If you made it until the end, you're an absolute G. Thank you for making it through the end. Hopefully I made you laugh with the Final Fantasy IX FF Dimensions garbage. Again, thank you all for watching this video. Have a fantastic day. Peace out, RPG nerds.